What if the next generation isn't rejecting God, but simply can't find Him in the places we expect? Across the country, churches are watching their youth walk away, not from faith itself, but from the way it's been packaged. In this video, we'll explore why young adults are leaving the church and what we can do about it. You'll discover powerful biblical truths, like how Acts 2 verse 46 reveals a model of community that might just be the key to reaching Gen Z today. We'll connect current trends with timeless scripture to uncover practical, spirit-led solutions. But here's what most people miss. The very patterns we see today were already addressed in scripture centuries ago. What did Jesus model that we've forgotten? And how can we restore a church where every generation thrives? Trends in church attendance among young adults. In recent years, church pews once filled with multi-generational families now reveal noticeable gaps, especially among young adults. According to Barna Group youth studies, Gen Z and millennials are attending church far less frequently than previous generations. While older members often speak of Sunday service as a spiritual anchor, many younger Christians see it as optional or even irrelevant. But this isn't just a sociological shift. It reflects a deeper spiritual disconnection that demands thoughtful attention. The question isn't merely why aren't they coming, but what are they seeking? Many churches still structure worship as they did decades ago, assuming that younger believers will simply adjust. But today's young adults live in a world defined by immediacy, digital engagement, and constant cultural shifts. Their spiritual hunger hasn't disappeared. It's just no longer satisfied by routine. Hebrews 10 verse 25 calls believers not to neglect meeting together, as is a habit of some, but also implies a need to encourage one another. If our gatherings no longer encourage, they may fail to fulfill their biblical purpose. Interestingly, while in-person attendance has declined, digital faith engagement has surged. Many young Christians stream sermons, follow theological discussions on YouTube, or connect with communities through social media. This doesn't mean they've lost their faith. It means they're redefining how they express it. What many don't realize is that the early church thrived not in temples, but in homes, Acts 2 verse 46, adapting to the culture without compromising the gospel. Perhaps that same flexibility is needed again today, not to dilute the truth, but to deliver it where young hearts are actually listening. Reason for disengagement from traditional church structures. When young adults walk away from traditional church settings, it's rarely an impulsive choice. More often, it's a slow fade, triggered by disillusionment, unanswered questions, or a lack of authentic community. Many describe feeling unheard or judged, as though the church values conformity more than conversation. Proverbs 18 verse 13 warns, "To answer before listening, that is folly and shame." If churches fail to listen first, they may miss the chance to truly speak into a generation's soul. Another major factor is relevance. Millennials and Gen Z are deeply attuned to justice, authenticity, and transparency. If sermons feel disconnected from real life or avoid pressing societal issues, they'll tune out, not because they reject scripture, but because they crave its real-world application. James 1 verse 22 exhorts believers to be doers of the word, not merely hearers. When church becomes performative instead of participatory, younger believers may feel more like spectators and disciples. And let's not overlook the trauma some carry. Church hurt is real, whether from hypocrisy, legalism, or moral failures among leaders. While no institution is perfect, young adults often expect spiritual spaces to model Christ-like integrity. When leadership falls short, many walk away not from God, but from the structures they feel failed Him. This echoes Jesus' words in Matthew 23 verse 27, calling out religious leaders who look righteous on the outside but were full of hypocrisy. The hunger for a pure, spirit-led expression of faith remains. It's a human packaging that often drives them away. The role of digital media in shaping faith. For today's young Christians, faith isn't just nurtured in sanctuaries, it's cultivated on screens. Through YouTube sermons, TikTok testimonies, and Instagram devotionals, Gen Z and millennials engage scripture in a radically different format. This shift has its benefits. Access to teaching is now instantaneous, global, and diverse. Romans 10 verse 17 tells us that faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. Digital platforms have multiplied the opportunities to hear, day or night, in private or in community. But this digital boom also brings challenges. Not all content is theologically sound, and to some it becomes crucial. A trending clip may attract views, but does it rightly divide the word of truth? 2 Timothy 2 verse 15. The danger isn't just misinformation, it's shallow formation. Sound bites and reels can inspire, but they rarely disciple. Churches must equip young believers to filter what they consume, training them to test every spirit, 1 John 4 verse 1, and anchor their online engagement in biblical truth. Still, there's immense potential. Many youth ministries are embracing digital tools to extend their reach, offering Bible reading plans through apps, hosting virtual small groups, and using live streams to invite those who wouldn't set foot in a church. Faith and technology aren't enemies. When wisely integrated, they become allies in spiritual growth. In Acts 17, verse 17, Paul reasoned in both the synagogue and the marketplace, meeting people where they were. The marketplace of our day includes a digital world, and it's there that many young souls are waiting. How churches can adapt to meet the needs of younger generations. If churches want to reach young adults, they must move beyond programs and start fostering presence. This generation is not looking for polished performances. They're looking for purpose. They want to see that their faith matters not just on Sundays, but on Mondays at work, in classrooms, or on social media. Philippians 2 verse 15 urges believers to shine among them like stars in the sky. That brilliance isn't theatrical. It's relational, rooted in humility and lived truth. One effective adaptation is creating spaces for honest questions without fear of judgment. Gen Z and millennials often wrestle with doubts about scripture, suffering, and identity. A church that silences questions unintentionally silences growth. In Luke 24 verses 38 to 39, the resurrected Jesus didn't rebuke Thomas for needing proof. He offered his hands. The same spirit of grace must guide how we respond to young seekers today. When churches create room for spiritual curiosity, faith can flourish. Practical shifts matter too. Updating the music set isn't the answer, but explaining the theology behind it might be. Replacing pews with bean bags won't fix disengagement, but building mentoring relationships might. Church adaptation doesn't mean compromise. It means contextualization. Like Paul in 1 Corinthians 9 verse 22, I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. When young adults see that the church is willing to speak their language without abandoning biblical truth, hearts begin to open. If you're enjoying this study, subscribe now so you don't miss even deeper reflections that can strengthen your Christian walk. Success stories of youth-focused ministries. Across the country, churches that have intentionally invested in young people are seeing incredible fruit. One such example is a congregation in Portland that launched a weekly Faith and Doubt night for college students. Instead of scripted lessons, leaders facilitated open dialogue grounded in Scripture. Over time, students who once felt spiritually isolated began to experience authentic community. This echoes Proverbs 27 verse 17, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Sometimes, revival begins not with louder preaching, but with deeper listening. In Atlanta, a church revamped its youth ministry by focusing on service rather than entertainment. Teens partner with local shelters and food banks, living out Micah 6 verse 8, to act justly and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. These young believers discovered that their faith had real-world impact, not just personal inspiration. This hands-on approach didn't just build character, it built commitment. Students who once viewed church as an obligation began leading outreach efforts with passion. Meanwhile, in San Diego, a congregation formed intergenerational mentor groups, pairing young adults with older believers. This wasn't about lectures. It was about life shared over coffee, prayer walks, and scripture study. Titus 2 verses 6 to 7 lays this out clearly. Older members are to be examples, encouraging younger ones in sound doctrine and integrity. The result? A thriving cross-generational culture where age is no barrier and wisdom flows both ways. Success isn't measured by flashy numbers, but by steady, faithful growth rooted in biblical community. What we've seen today isn't just a generational challenge. It's a spiritual invitation. God is calling His church to rise with wisdom, compassion, and courage. If we want to reach young adults, we must not only speak truth, we must live it. James 1 verse 22 reminds us, do not merely listen to the word, do what it says. So here's the question. Are we modeling a faith worth following? Are we building churches where young believers feel known, heard, and discipled in love? Romans 12 verse 2 urges us not conform to this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. This includes how we think about ministry, culture, and community. Let's recap. The decline in young adults' church attendance isn't always rebellion. It's often unmet hunger. Gen Z faith trends show they still long for truth, just not tradition for tradition's sake. Through digital faith engagement, many are finding Jesus, but often outside church walls. True transformation begins when we embrace intergenerational church dialogue, wise youth ministry strategies, and humble church adaptation grounded in the gospel. Megaphone, if you were blessed by this content and want to continue receiving these messages, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share with those you think need this word.